Boom.
Are we ready?
Yep.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we introduce our guest, speaking for myself, ever since the Biden administration came into office, other than the Ohio train derailment boondoggle, I've noticed a distinct lack of follow up reporting on major disasters that occur here and around the world. I mean, there's been oil refinery explosions, more derailments. The largest chicken farm in the U.S. burned to the ground in Minnesota, causing massive egg shortages. These should have been major news stories, but now nothing. My contention that these events are caused by eco terrorism, and that is why it's not being reported. Add to this recently the Maui fires caused both by brazen incompetence by government officials and laws preventing firemen from the use of water because of could quote due to equity concerns about the poor not having enough unquote. Our guest today is Matthew Ehret. He is the co-founder of the Rising Tide Foundation, and he's the editor-in-chief of the Canadian Patriot Review. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, Blair. Hello, Martin.
Hello, Matthew.
All right. The reason I asked you on today, Martin, is because I saw this article a month or so ago, but it was originally, I think, in May it was posted to the Last American Vagabond, which is called "The Roots of Modern Eco-Terrorism: From MK Ultra and the Unabomber to Maurice Strong and Yuval Harari." All right. And in that article, you state, quote, that modern-day Malthusians claim that humanity's primary problem is climate change and overpopulation, which apparently can only be tackled by radically reducing energy use, food production, and national sovereignty, unquote. So what do they have in store for us then, I guess? That's one quick question. And who is Mark Carney?
Mark Carney is known as the eco warrior of central bankers, a Goldman Sachs investment banker who rose to prominence, becoming the governor of the Bank of Canada for a period from 2008 till 2013. Then he went on to higher things in the city of London, becoming the governor of the Bank of England, the head of the Bank of International Settlements branch that oversaw the regulation of international derivatives. And if anybody has looked into derivatives, they should be aware that this is the weapon of mass destruction that has been built into the financial system over the course of the past 3 decades as the time bomb that's been set to burst. These are purely fictitious insurance what Alan Greenspan called creative financial instruments. So the idea that you could gamble on non-existent entities and then insure these either bundles of debt that you then insure and then gamble upon the price on the futures or spot markets of what these non-existent unpayable bundled entities of assets would be worth, which are just illegitimately created debts out of thin air, whether subprime mortgages, collateralized debt obligations, other things. So this has now come to a point where 35 years ago, they didn't really exist. 1992, there was about 2 trillion of them. By the year 2000, there was about $70 trillion worth of derivatives. Today, it's about $1.5 quadrillion. So as one could see that Mark Carney, in his time overseeing the international regulation, and he worked very closely with another technocrat named Mario Draghi at that bureau, the Financial Stability Board. He didn't really do his job. He oversaw the growth of this time bomb to possibly double what it was before he took the job, to the point that today it's about 40 times the world GDP. And that's what's going to bomb. That's what's going to blow. That's what is blowing. That's what's designed to take down the world financial system. So his assignment has been this, but he's also an ideological Malthusian, as you pointed out. The Malthusian ideology is really what people need to understand has been at the heart of the worst genocides, whether in Ireland in the 1850s, whether in India over the course of 20 controlled famines overseen by the British Empire. Malthus was the official sort of high priest of the British Empire who came out with a mathematical model for population control in 1799 in his essay on population. And he taught the British East India Company managers and economists. So he wasn't like just an ivory tower theoretician. And his theories were proven wrong in the 19th century. He believed that the world could only cap max 1 billion. And his formula for foreseeing the future and acting preventatively on future population crises, which was used by the managers of the City of London and the British East India Company, was based on this stupid formula that presumes that human population growth is always geometric, whereas agriculture is always arithmetic, resulting in a crisis. At some point, you could extrapolate into the future, and that gives the tools for social engineers to act now to create wars, famine, plague, whatever else, to keep the population down and fighting as an unfortunate necessary obligation for staying in alignment with what they perceive to be or demand be natural law. So this was proven wrong because human beings actually are creatures who are endowed with creative reason and can make discoveries that are nonlinear into the laws of the universe. And this also has an artistic aspect, which allows us to supersede and override our limits to growth. So we always have carrying capacities, just like other animals do, except unlike other animals, our carrying capacity is variable based upon our obedience to our ability to make discoveries and be happy and create greater rates of progress, live longer, sustain more people with less effort. That's called a moral way of doing things, or our unwillingness to make discoveries and apply new discoveries in the form of new technologies, which result in making the ability to support people smaller and smaller, which is what the Malthusians kind of view as a Pygmalion effect. So that Mark Carney is an inductee or a devotee of this ideology, which came to prominence over the dead bodies of people like John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King in the 60s. And you had the Malthusian class took real power with Henry Kissinger, who was a Malthusian. He wrote tracts calling for, population control around the world in his NSSM 200. Zbigniew Brzezinski, David Rockefeller, all of them are calling for global depopulation around new computer modeling technologies that were coming online in the 1970s. The Club of Rome was a big one. And this is what drove the World Economic Forum's creation. One of Henry Kissinger's students, Klaus Schwab, was assigned the role of creating this new forum that Mark Carney is a trustee of. And the idea was to induce society under the veil of capitalism to destroy itself from within, to create a crisis that would be so unbearable and so traumatic that people would then accept a new set of values, as in to kind of the same way that the Germans accepted a new set of values after the Weimar hyperinflation was artificially created in the 1920s, and then Hitler's banker Hjalmar Schacht was deployed from the Bank of England in 1923 to offer people these new shiny Rentenmarks that came with new rules, as long as they given their wheelbarrows full of useless Reichsmarks.
Right, to get a
That's
loaf
the same
of
sort of
bread.
thing that they've been planning today with central bank digital currencies, tied to the idea of shutting down industrial civilization with a Green New Deal, green forms of CBDCs and other things that are tied to lessening human impact on the environment. Windmills, solar panels are useful. Bug eating, you'll be rewarded for that, get more credits. And that's what Mark Carney has been also overseeing.
Yeah. All right, what about what does King Charles III have to do with any of this? I thought he was just the one.
King Charles III. Yeah.
Go ahead.
He's carrying on the legacy of his father, Prince Philip, and King Charles is the president of the UK World Wildlife Fund, still to this very day. That was founded. It's an organization founded by Prince Bernhard and Prince Philip back in 1961, along with Julian Huxley, the then president of the British Eugenics Society. That trio founded the World Wildlife Fund originally as a way to usher in a new paradigm of think small, think beyond growth. And it's a cover for feudalism around the idea of hugging trees and stopping pollution. And of course, everyone can agree we shouldn't pollute, but these guys don't really care about that. So King Charles III is a longtime friend and ally of Klaus Schwab. He brought online several World Economic Forum Davos programs, including business in the environment or business in the community, a network of businesses pushing for the transition towards a green economy. The central bankers, or what's it called? The I'm forgetting it. There's a variety of projects. Anyway,
Sure.
Knowles is somebody who's big into this.
So one of the things that startled me in your article was that there's actually a film out called, quote, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. What is that, like a recruitment tool, or what kind of absurdity is that?
Yeah, it's a recruitment tool. It's based on it's a fictional account of a book that was also a bestseller, promoted in all the major bookstores by Andres Malm, published in 2021 actually, called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. And this is a Hollywood rendition of the film, or of the book, that involves portraying these basically what are eco-terrorists, about 7 or 8 young disenfranchised, alienated young people who have obviously been processed through a woke Marxist education and have been induced to become haters of industrial civilization. And they, the idea is they're portrayed as these romantic rebels, these revolutionaries against an evil Borg-like system called human civilization, and they're trying to blow up a pipeline. And they're falling in love with each other. And yeah, the idea is it's supposed to normalize this type of activity, which in the course of the paper, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, there's been an effort to create sort of a North American European variation of a theme, which has been already developed in the Middle East over decades. In the case of the Middle East, the CIA, as we know, has been cultivating and radicalizing different groupings of young men of the Islamic faith. Especially, this really exploded in the no pun intended, in the late 70s, early 80s, with the CIA funding of radicalizing madrasas throughout Pakistan, Afghanistan, as part of what created Al Qaeda as proxies to fight the Soviets and suck the Soviets into this unwinnable quagmire in the 80s in Afghanistan. Wow. Now that grouping, which became then Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, all these other like variations of that, never ceased being assets for U.S. intelligence and British intelligence, who have always been there with white helmets, other things on the ground in Syria, working with the Libyan Islamic Fighters Group as assets to overthrow governments we don't like. So the variation of the terrorists, obviously, there's not too many white useful idiot Muslims in North America so much, but there are nihilistic existentialists who have been trained in a radicalizing university system to think that the worst thing that human beings have ever done, we are a cancer by nature. The best thing you can do for a cancer is try to kill it. And there's a lot of teachers who have been installed to create cells within various universities across the transatlantic. And for those students who showcase a certain talent and exuberance and enthusiasm, they're inducted into special